Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting version of Chip Talks podcast. Today, we're going to talk about the endocannabinoid system and really eating, digestion, kind of how all that works, which is really pretty cool. And it's an interesting story, let's say. There's a lot more to this than we think about. We're generally pretty programmed just into a way of thinking and kind of a pattern of thinking. And we don't really think very deeply about eating, but I think it's a very important thing that we need to think about because, again, it's how we get fuel into our body. It's how we feed, ourselves and basically run this machine, right? So it's also the most costly thing that I do to myself every day. So what's the most damaging thing that you do to yourself every day? It's eat. It takes an incredible amount of energy for you to break down food and kind of deal with food. And we, eat way too frequently and we're all malnourished right now, which is just insane. But as you look at this system, you quickly understand that, the proper things to eat, how much we should be eating of them, how our bodies work in a little different way. So, join me today on a journey because we're going to go down really the digestive health, how that works, and hopefully you guys will learn a few things. So here we go. I got to get over to where I'm at. There we go. So the first thing is, if you look at digestive health, you're certainly going to find that the endocannabinoid system has a lot to do with digestive health. In particular, you will see that CB1 and CB2 neuroreceptors play a role in digestive health. Now, just generally, I'll tell you this, that in the endocannabinoid system, so the endocannabinoid system is our master regulatory system. It sits in function above every other system in our body, except maybe the biofield and some other major systems. But for the most part, every system that you learned about in high school anatomy, the endocannabinoid system sits above and manages and manipulates. Well, and it's kind of like you can think of it as like, we all understand in our car, we have a sensor array, and then by that sensor array, we'll make changes. So we might adjust our, pressures and balance all kinds of stuff in our engine. But, that happens through a computer, sensor array, mechanism of action. So you can think about your hypothalamus hippocampus as your computer. Endocannabinoid system is your sensor array and also your mechanism of action. So when you need to do things, if you put, food in your mouth, you're going to need to digest it, right? So you need to do something. And in order to do something, you have to have engineering surface, right? So you have to have some kind of control surface on that thing to kind of tell it what to do. Well, this is exactly what happens with the endocannabinoid system, and in particular, CB1 neuroreceptors. So as you're trying to tell your stomach to do things, you need more CB1 neuroreceptors expressed. You need more control surface, more engineering surface. And so these CB1s will express all over your body in any tissue and in any shit cell and in organelles, in cells. So CB1s express everywhere where you need to do work, everywhere where you're trying to make a change because they're engineering surfaces. But now, like if you're a cannabis person, let's say, well, THC heavily affects CB1. It doesn't quite affect it like your internal called anandamide, but it certainly does affect it. So all of these things are kind of over to the left here that apply to CB1 activation and restraints would also apply to, THC administration, let's say. Okay, so sphincters, when CB1 basically is restraining these things, okay? So sphincter relaxation, again, if you're having CB1 action, your sphincter is going to be unrelaxed. You will be having gastric acid secretion because you're eating and you need to break down stuff, and that's going to happen. You'll be holding on to stuff in your tummy, so you won't be emptying. You'll be kind of holding on to things because you have to digest them, right? So the less CB1 action you have, kind of the more motility or more movement you will have, okay? So these are restrained items. And so, inflammation is somewhat restrained in the stomach as CB1s are activated, which is good. You can't absorb nutrients through inflamed skin. So CB2s, we know about CB2s, and again, they have some action in the gut. CB2s are mainly associated with immune response, They do some other things, but if you look at control, where you really need a lot of control. So CB1 is kind of our big control. CB2 is a finer control, and really in the immune system is where we need this a lot. But CB2s are also pretty, they call it ubiquitously expressed. So they're kind of all over the place in our body. But point is, we've got CB1s and CB2s, and those are in our gut, certainly, and need to be in our gut because we do work there. All right. So arguably the most important organ that you need to eat things and digest things is something called the pancreas, right? And the pancreas will express 3 different types of enzymes depending on what you've eaten. So you have an enzyme to break down carbohydrates, you have an enzyme to break down fats, and you have an enzyme to break down proteins. And that's it. Okay. So there's no enzyme to break down cookies or enzyme to break down milk or enzyme to break down, whatever the heck else we think we need to eat. 3. Okay. Carbohydrates, proteins, fat. So as we look at things that we need to eat, I mean, those are the major categories, at least to your body. Those are the major categories of things. Okay. So you need, you're going to eat protein, you're going to eat fat, and you're going to eat carbohydrates. Now, just generally, carbohydrates are really good for a source of vitamins, source of fiber, but they're sugar, right? So they're sugar, and we need some sugar. We need some glucose to run us. And clearly, you have to have it because you have an enzyme to digest it. So we need some sugar, but sugar's used for quick energy. It's not really our long-term energy. It's not really how you want to run stuff in your body, but you kind of, it's good to have to start things, right? So quick twitch you can think about is a lot of glucose. So we need carbohydrates, but they're not like the most important thing, but they're certainly an important thing because we have an enzyme to break them down. We have an enzyme to break down protein. Now you'll hear all the time, well, we have to have protein. Your body needs protein. And that's absolutely right. Why does your body need protein? For the amino acids. So basically proteins is what breaks down proteins into individual amino acids. Okay. So we need that, right? So, and you need amino acids. All cells are trying to do work, and they're trying to basically build proteins, and they can't do that without a bunch of amino acids. So we take in proteins, we break them down into little amino acids. Those amino acids go out into your system, and cells grab those amino acids and put them together for proteins for what they're trying to do. Okay, so proteins is a really, it's a signaling mechanism inside of you. It's a way that cells talk to each other, but they can also be used as fuel. Proteins can be used as fuel, and a lot of bacteria use proteins as fuel. They'll rob you, let's say, of your branch chain amino acids because that's what they like to eat. And guess what? You can't build muscle because you got some bacterial infection, right? So they like to rob us of proteins. But then the last thing that we break down are fats. Now, if you look at difficulty, it's fats and proteins are more difficult, let's say, to break down than carbohydrates. And so we need additional mechanisms inside of us. The pancreas can't, as soon as you eat, and let's say stuff hits your tummy, you're not really evaluating at that point. You're not evaluating, is it a carbohydrate? Is it a protein? Is it a fat? Where you begin to evaluate these things is at your taste buds, which is really cool. So absolutely, you have endocannabinoid system neuroreceptors in your mouth and on your tongue and your taste buds. So we're going to talk about some other endocannabinoid neuroreceptors that you don't hear every day, in the kind of endocannabinoid blah, blah. So we're going to talk about some special ones. All right. So we'll talk about them in detail. But these are really important receptors, as you'll see, very important to our function. So again, on our taste buds, we have to have some mechanism to understand what we're eating, okay? Because we have to start these actions of the pancreas. The pancreas, it needs to start making enzymes for what you just put in your mouth, right? And it's going to make one of those 3 enzymes that we just talked about, but it's got to kind of know. It's got to kind of know as soon as those things go into your mouth. So it turns out your mouth is way more sensitive than we think, and it's got taste buds in it. These taste buds will have different, let's say, specialties. So there's a taste bud configuration that's for sweet stuff. There's a taste bud configuration for umami. There's a taste bud configuration for bitter. And there's an endocannabinoid configuration for fat. Now, again, as I just said, we store fat. Fat feeds our endocannabinoid system. Fat is absolutely the most important thing you put in your body every day. Now, again, don't go out and eat a bunch of meat because you want a bunch of saturated fat. That's not the right thing to do. We need to understand what those fats are, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But look at this. On your tongue, you have endocannabinoid receptors that are basically sensing whether we're eating fat or we're eating other things, right? And from these actions, again, there's crosstalk to your fat tissue, because you've got to know if you're eating a bunch of fat that, you've got to have room to store it. Is it better than what you have stored or not? If it is, then you've got to kind of bring in fat, swap it out with triglycerides in your liver, make it better. So you've got to know right off. You've got to know what you're eating. And it turns out you do. How cool is that? Oh, by the way, if you guys stick around to the end of this, we're going to give a coupon out for 30% off of some of our gut products, okay? So again, we get in the middle of all this with our True Medics products. They look like little simple, benign, natural products, but I'm right in the middle of all this stuff in my design. And I'm, trying to affect this stuff because it starts right when you put things in your mouth. So what is this GPR 120? All right, he's up here, GPR 120. Why is he so important? Why, what does he do? What's so magical about GPR 120? Well, it turns out he's your omega-3 fat sensing receptor. Now, why is this important? It's super important that your body understands the amount of omega-3 and omega-6 fats that you get, because it completely sets a tone inside of your body as to an inflammatory state and how reactive that is, or an anti-inflammatory state and how reactive that is. So we have to know. And so it turns out GPR 120 is our omega-3 sensing fat receptor. And again, omega-3s are, in our current diet, omega-3 and omega-6 are both extremely important. Right now in our current diet, we eat way too many omega-6s and no omega-3s. And what that does is it sets a super reactive and inflammatory state inside of us. So, but anyway, our bodies need to understand if we're getting omega-3 fats, and that starts at the taste bud, okay? But it also transitions all the way through your gut. So you have GPR 120s all the way through your gut. You've also got GPR 120s in your adipose tissue, in your fat, because it's super important to know how many omega-3s and omega-6s you have stored in fat. Now, omega-3s are used in a bunch of different ways. Omega-6s mainly get consumed by the endocannabinoid system. Now, the endocannabinoid system uses omega-3s too, but the main, let's say, ligand in our system is called anandamide, and anandamide uses basically is omega-6s. So they consume omega-6s, that side of the whole endocannabinoid system. But omega-3s and omega-6s, super important. But again, you have an omega-3 receptor, and that's pretty dang important. Now, if you begin to look at what GPR 120 does and what he controls all the inflammation pathways. So if you're chronically inflamed, seriously, all you need to do is hit this receptor that's going to help. Well, first of all, you need to figure out why you're chronically inflamed. And that's what we do at Neighborly Wellness. So we can help you understand, what kind of potentially might be causing, your inflammation. But if you are chronically inflamed, all you got to do is hit this receptor. Okay. This receptor controls inflammation and controls inflammation by omega-3s. So how do you hit this receptor? Chia seeds. Okay. Nature, baby. All right. So what's another receptor in this whole situation? GPR 119. Yeah. So he's a pretty important guy in this whole thing. So we can read about him here. GPR 119 is expressed predominantly in the pancreas and gastrointestinal tract of rodents and in rodents and human, as well as in the brain in rodents. Brain. Activation of this receptor has been shown to cause reduction in food intake and body weight gain in rats. GPR119 has also been shown to regulate incretin insulin hormone secretion, and as a result, new drugs acting on the receptor have been suggested as novel treatments for obesity and diabetes. If you buy our FAST product at TrueMedics, you will be affecting this receptor. So yes, it's a very good pharmacological target. I'm using it. And why? Because it makes you feel full. Now, there's some other things associated with GPR119, but again, this is the receptor that causes us to feel full. And you have to have something that, it's not like, oh, well, I know because my stomach is 3/4 full that I'm full. That's not the way it works, boys and girls. You have to hit this receptor. And there's a way to hit this receptor with, it's an endocannabinoid receptor. Olive oil hits this receptor, right? But we use this strategy in our drug development, really within, kind of what we're doing, and then our lesser stuff that's in TrueMedics. So if you buy our FAST weight loss product, that we're having great results with, the reason you will have great results is because that product hits this receptor. It does some other things, but it also hits this receptor. So super important. In fact, it hits this receptor by this, if you want to know, but super important to look at kind of all of this endocannabinoid action that's happening around fats. So this is a dietary fat. This is a breakdown of a dietary fat. Okay. So this is just a breakdown of a dietary fat. And guess how you hit GPR120, omega-3 fat. Okay. So these are just driven by fats, which again, the endocannabinoid system, it's not driven by marijuana. It sounds pretty sexy. Oh, the endocannabinoid system is driven by marijuana. But it's not. It's driven by the very unsexy dietary fats. And so, and again, the cool thing about that is you can manipulate it with dietary fats. In a perfect world, we understand the right amount of fats to eat and everything else we need to eat. And our body balances around perfect rather than diseased like we do now, because we don't even understand any of this. So, this is why we're so passionate about this, because once you see this, again, I can help so many of you guys just with this information. I can help you and educate you and kind of get you up to speed so that we all begin to strive toward, I think, better function, more perfect function, healthier, live longer, less burden on the medical system, blah, 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 blah. But all the, none of those things are bad, are they? So I think we all should be striving toward those things. And for some reason we're not. Why would the medical system not? That's interesting. Okay, so I want to really kind of talk to you guys a little bit about kind of what happens inside of you. So you need, in the endocannabinoid system, we have this relationship, let's say, with our gut biome. Now, we may need that right now with our diet and kind of the way that we behave and the things that we eat in order to stay alive. So we may really need commiserate, microbiome in order to survive. But I don't think that's right. I really don't. I don't see that as the way the world works. I don't see that as the way that God works. I see in you, the ability to live free of that. Okay. But for right now, we need it. And just because of our diet, I think, but we need it. If we could perfectly balance these fats and everything, if we could perfectly balance our aminos, if we could perfectly balance our glucose and our fiber and get all our vitamins and stuff, we could probably do that in, 30 grams or something, right? But if we could do all of that, then I don't think, we would have as great of a need for a biome, but that needs to be studied quite a bit. But anyway, the important thing about this, okay, so this is talking really about another receptor, GPR40. So, and GPR40 is an endocannabinoid receptor. Again, he is modulated by dietary fats, just like the other endocannabinoid receptors. But he appears to be a pretty good target, and he's also associated with B cells. So, this is still kind of theory, I would say, that you can find a lot of smoke here. So what is diabetes, right? Well, diabetes is a disease of the pancreas and a disease of the B cell. It's where B cells get dysregulated and they don't produce insulin anymore. Well, what would cause that? Well, here's a receptor system that's deeply involved with B cells and their ability to produce insulin. So is GPR120. So, is there an answer to type 1 diabetes? it's your pancreas is always making new cells, and it's always making new B cells. So it's not like they pop out messed up. Something is altering them, and something is causing them to not produce insulin. But the mechanisms of action of those somethings, likely have to do with the endocannabinoid system. So this is why it's so important to study. IBS and Crohn's and things like that are really just gut inflammation things. They're called different stuff, but you can think of kind of all, and even autoimmunes are the resultant, let's say, of gut inflammation. What happens if your gut gets in? You have these, so your gut is the place where your blood system is very close to being open to your nutrient system. Okay. So if you think about all the stuff that you eat every day is in very close contact with your blood system. All right. And so you have basically epithelial walls that separate your nutrient system from your blood system. Well, if you've got a bunch of funky bacteria in your gut, it's going to cause inflammation. They're eating this tissue, they're munching on this tissue, and then they're sucking nutrients. So as you become inflamed, what happens is those junctions come apart and you get a lot of movement of crap in and out of your blood in your gut. So, if you have bleeding, gut or bleeding stool, that's kind of what, well, stool could be something else, but that's kind of what's going on there. And so bad things, bacteria and other bad things can move around and now get from your gut into your blood, and they can go different places. And so they'll find opportunistic organs to go to, like your thyroid, and create, Hashimoto's, right? So that's kind of how all that works. So again, how do you reduce that inflammation? Well, we have to manage the biome. We've got, kind of product to do that, but we want to close up those junctions, right? How do you close up those junctions? Omega-3 fatty acids. You hit GPR 120, okay? That's going to happen. So, if we want relief from autoimmunes and things like that, we've got to understand these processes. We've got to understand what's creating inflammation, which is too much omega-6 over omega-3. And as we balance that and eat more omega-3, guess what? Those junctions tighten up. Our organs heal like they should, as long as they're not being constantly attacked. Our biome gets a lot more friendly and a lot less pathogenic. So, and that's what we want to have happen. Now, most of us are in a sad state of affairs in all this right now. Okay. So again, here's more, and I just want to sort of drive home this point about type 1. Is again, here's more evidence of GPR, 120 involved in insulin, involved in kind of this whole, eating, nutrition. I'm full, I'm not. My cells have had enough glucose, they haven't. I need to uptake glucose. So all that is kind of part of the same process. It's your eating again is very consequential. This is the most difficult and hard thing that we put our bodies through every day. But there's a lot involved with it. But this whole diabetes loop is really interesting, regarding these receptors that no one ever talks about. Okay, so we've got some products here. So I just want to talk real quick about our products, because our products incorporate, all these principles. And I'm pretty proud of these products. The extra strength version of this will be a drug. Eventually this will be on the market in something like it will compete with, let's say, semaglutides, because we're safe. We're not doing anything harmful to you. We're just hitting these receptors, and we're working with your body with food in kind of the right way. But you can buy this product, right now on our website. And hold on a second, let me get over here. And if you use that, then you will be able to get a 30% discount on these products this weekend. So our fast tablets, again, are built in a drug-like fashion, and they work in a drug-like fashion. We have an omega-3 supplement. Now, one thing, and again, I'm just kind of using this to educate you guys. I hope you buy our product, but it's an education for you, if nothing else. So one thing that's important with omega-3s to understand is that a lot of omega-3 supplements will have DHA and EPA. So they'll say, EPA and DHA are omega-3 supplements. Well, that's fine. In most fish oil supplements and things like that will be EPA, DHA. But that's not good enough. That's not what you want. And again, you want to hit GPR 120, and you want to hit GPR 120 with the most force you possibly can. And so in order to do that, you have to find an omega-3 called alpha linolenic acid, or ALA. ALA is in seeds. And so we use 2 different types of seed oils in our super omegas. So we use chia seed oil, and we also use another seed oil called camelina. But these are very good combined. This is a very strong source of omega-3s. And it also has some good protein in it. Okay, and then the last thing that I'll talk about here is our gut product. So a lot of people take probiotics. Again, I'm not a big fan of the microbiome, so that's a little scary to me. You don't really want to tell your body what to do with the biome. You want to kind of let your body develop the bacteria that it needs along the lines of what you're eating. So your biome is really directly related to your diet. Okay. So it's directly related to your diet, and you can change your biome by your diet. And that's really what this product is doing, is just changing your biome by your diet. But, taking probiotics, trying to force change in there might be some extreme reasons, like an autistic gut, like just a really messed up gut, that you'd want to do that. But you don't want to do that very long, and you kind of want to do that once, and you really don't want to add to, let's say, the bacterial load in your body. We want to take away from the bacterial load on our body. The bacteria, cause reactions in us that don't, again, they can make some stuff that will help you, but overall, they're built to live off of you. They're built to feed off of you. They're built to exist off of you. And that takes energy from you. That you can't be at your highest form if you've got a bunch of fleas and ticks all over you. It's just, I'm sorry, I don't believe that. I believe God built you to live without fleas and ticks. Let's just put it that way. But right now, we've got to we need the fleas and ticks because they're, helping us because we don't know what to eat or how to eat. So this product is a prebiotic. So this product will allow your body to build the proper, biome that it thinks that it needs. So all we're doing here is provide, and you can do this at home. Fiber and a fermenter is really all we're providing here, and some turmeric. But this is fiber in a fermenter, and fiber in a fermenter, if you give that to yourself, it's going to help with so many things that are wrong with us right now. But anyway, you can get these products this weekend for 30% off at True Medics. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, I formulate True. I'm in the lab making True Medics most days. So I formulate those products around my knowledge of the endocannabinoid system. And those products are not simple products. They're very thoughtful, very designed. They're basically developed like a drug, and the extra strength of some of those products will be a drug. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this today. We will see you back next Friday for another exciting version of Chip Talks podcast. See you guys. Bye.